15 months ago, Paradox Interactive released the game Imperator Rome. The hype was huge, it got good ratings in the gaming press, but then came a backlash. A lot of fans didn't enjoy the game as much as Paradox had hoped for. Instead, they felt that the game was lacking in both depth and content. Paradox themselves said that this game contained more content and depth than any of their previous titles had at release. The problem was that fans wasn't comparing it to the release version of previous Paradox titles like EU4 and CK2. They were comparing it to the current versions of those games that Paradox had kept on developing, adding to for years since release. Now 15 months has passed since release. The question is, did they fix it or did they give up on the game? In this video, I will go through the 4 major patches and the 2 DLCs they have added to the game since release. And after that, I will give my thoughts on the current state of the game. For the patches, I will focus on bigger features. If you want to get into the details of bug fixes, balancing, UI tweaks and so on, I'm going to put a link to the patch notes in the description below so you can read them yourself. The first major patch, 1.1, called Pompey, was released 2 months after the game got released. This is a completely free update, so if you own the game, you also have this patch. First off, it introduced a major naval warfare rework. There are now multiple new ship types with different strengths and weaknesses. You can also pick a tactic for your fleet the same way you could do with your armies before. And you can now capture ships, you can have your heavy ships help with sieges. Your ships can now take attrition if they are too far away from your own waters. There are some new traits for admirals that can give bonuses or weaknesses to your navy. And of course we have my favorite new naval feature. Ships can now travel through larger rivers. And also the cities that are nearby large rivers or rivers at all get some extra bonuses. Pirates have been updated. You can now hire them the same way that you've been able to hire mercenaries previously, getting their ships to work for you. Dual rulership. Finally Rome got their 2 councils. And the Romans are not alone. Some other government forms have similar features. Monarchs, for example, as we can see here, the consort now can make up for the failings of the monarch's abilities. The stability system have been reworked. Instead of a scale from -3 to +3, it now ranges from 0 to 100, gravitating towards 50. New concept for your characters is a power base. And power base is a representation of how much military might a character would have if they decide to use it. And it can be gained from activities like gaining an office, government ships, leading armies, or just gathering wealth. And the calculations for civil wars will take power base into account. Holdings have been reworked. Except for the capital of the state, each territory includes 1 holding. And if a character controls a holding, it will give different bonuses to that character, and it also will increase his power base. And you can give characters holdings, or you can also revoke holdings. And the characters that you can give holdings are the head of families. And there's also a few events and stuff like that that can give characters holdings. And also if a character acquires enough wealth, they might buy an holding themselves. Government interactions, bonuses or actions that your nation can get at a cost. So this is a new feature that will have different types of actions or bonuses happen, and of course they often come with some sort of a cost, some sort of a price. And these type of government interactions will vary between different government types, and the government actions are usually tools dealing with common situation for that government type that you're currently playing as. The POPs mechanic have received some changes. They are now split in population growth and population capacity. And some trade goods have been rebalanced to affect either growth or capacity. And overpopulated cities now need to be developed to continue growing. A warm climate will support a larger population, and things like nearby rivers and roads will also have an effect. If you like playing tall, a new province level feature will give you some extra depth to that playing style, letting you spend resources on your current cities rather than spending them conquer new ones. You can see these 4 buttons here. All of them will give you a penalty for 2 years, and after that they will give you a bonus until the end of the game. The ambition system have been reworked to make it easier for you to keep track of what your characters are up to, and occasionally you can assist or interfere with these schemes. So if you look at schemes, you can tell that our ruler right now, his content in life is nothing special going on. If we want to, we could have him try to influence another character. We'll have to pay popularity, and we get to pick a character that he tries to influence, and he's going to show up here. He's currently trying to influence that character. If we go to our wife instead, we can see that she has a scheme going on. She's sponsoring games, and you can tell that she will gain popularity from it. It will cost her wealth, and you can see a timer for how long it goes on, and we can also pay some points to affect it. So yeah, it's much easier to keep track of what your characters are up to right now. You can now switch religion. For example, right now as Egypt, our religion is the Hellenic one. But as you can tell, a lot of our nation actually has the Kemetic religion in the provinces. So if you go to decisions, there is a option for us to embrace the Kemetic pantheon, making it our state religion. There's also new omens and more omen variation, and it's a difference between different religions and countries. The game also has introduced a lot of new events. I'm not going to go through them here. Another requested feature is that you can now actually relocate your capital with a click of a button. You can now release provinces at client states. At the national screen, all your provinces, you have the option to release a subject, making that state a subject of yours. The 1.1 patch also gave us more weather effects and effects from volcanoes and things like that. The second major patch, 1.2, called Cicero, was released late in September 2019. Just like patch 1.1, this was a completely free patch. If you own the game, you have this patch. And this was the big fix-it patch. While 1.1 had fixed smaller things like Rome's dual consuls, this patch went for the major gameplay change, the monarch points. Monarch points had been one of the biggest complaints from fans when the game got released, and based on that feedback, Paradox now decided to get rid of Monarch points completely. And that means a lot of changes with this patch is about how you now can do stuff that you previously did with Monarch points. Gone are a lot of the things you could do with a click of a mouse button, and instead things happen over time. For example, you can no longer change the pop's culture or their religion with a click of a button. You can no longer promote or demote the type of a pop from like freemen to citizens and so on with the click of a button. It also now happens over time based on modifiers. Well, you get the point. A lot of things that you previously did just with the click of a button spending Monarch points now happens over time. To replace Monarch points, other than time, they also introduced a new currency called political influence. And this political power is generated by loyal members of your government over time. And political influence is used for a lot of different stuff. And I'm not going to go through all of them here. You will notice it while playing the game yourself. And when it comes to moving pops, you can no longer move pops freely. The only type of pops that you can move is slaves or tribesmen if you're a tribe. You can't move the other pop types. Pops instead will migrate freely based on a few factors. As you can tell here, I have an ongoing migration. You can tell where they are migrating, how much time it will take, and what modifiers affect it. And currently we have no incoming migration, only outgoing migration.
You can tell by this arrow here on the map where my pops are. The outgoing migration is going, and of course if you click it we can see that we are getting incoming migration from 2 different cities, but we also have outgoing migration to another city. And here you can tell we're getting a lot of migrations from almost everywhere, and the reason for that is when your cities migrate, they can migrate to neighboring cities in the same province, but you can also migrate between provinces with a port in your empire. And that's of course what we see here when we see some overseas migration going on, and also from this port to that port. This patch also brought some changes to the military. Unit experience no longer decays from losing battles, but instead decays over time. And to counter this, armies now have access to drilling. So you can spend some maintenance costs and get some lower loyalty to gain more monthly experience. And drilling is actually extra important now, because another new feature is military experience. And what military experience is used for, first off, it's affected. It has a base effect. It comes from fighting, it comes from war exhaustion, and so on. But the military traditions now use a military experience as the cost to invest in new traditions, which makes experience really important. You want to get it up so you can get those nice bonuses that some of these traditions will give you. You can also now disband loyal cohorts. So even if this army has quite a few loyal guys, you can still disband it. It comes with a increased cost. And if you disband the units loyal to a character that later on revolts, these units will come back and help him in his revolt. It will increase his power base. Yeah, they can basically give you some trouble. The final largest change in patch 1.2 is an update to cities and buildings. And I've been using the term cities throughout this video, but they have actually been split up into cities, settlements, and metropolis, and they are collectively known as territories. And if you look at the map, only cities and metropolis are now represented in buildings that you can actually see on the map. So for example, in my nation, you can tell that these provinces or territories or cities, what you want to call them, are the only ones that are cities and larger. Well, let's start with the most basic type of territory, a settlement. And a settlement has a low population, and it also has a low population cap. And it also have different type of buildings compared to cities and metropolis. Right now we are looking at a settlement, and just to show you the difference when we move into a city here, that there are very different buildings. The ones that we could see in the settlement is not even available, most of them, when it comes to a city. A settlement can be upgraded to a city if it fulfills quite a few criteria, and as you can tell, a lot of things will happen. It will change the trade good, among other things. And a city can be upgraded to a metropolis if it meets the criteria, or you could revoke the city status so it becomes a settlement again. Talking about all these buildings, I'm not going to go through them, but if you played the launch version of the game, you can tell that there's a lot of new buildings. They have added 11 new building types for cities and 5 new building types for settlements. And that's the major changes in patch 1.2. The third major patch, 1.3, called Livy, was released in December 2019 alongside with the Punic Wars content pack DLC. And just like the previous patches, both patch 1.3 and the Punic Wars DLC are completely free. If you own the game, you have these. And the first major thing with this patch is map changes. New territories and nations have been added. I won't go through them, but if you want to check out Sicily, check out Ireland, check out Scotland, Greece, and the Baltic coast yourself, and you will find both new territories and nations. Statesmanship is a new experience system for your characters. And it governs how well your characters perform administrative government jobs. And statesmanship is built up by your character over time, and it acts as a multiplier to their skills. A character with low statesmanship will not perform to their full potential. In the past, you usually just pick the guy with the highest skill, but with statesmanship, that's not always the case. A character with high skill
but low statesmanship may perform worse than a character with a lower skill but high statesmanship. And you can clearly see the effect of this. This guy I've assigned has a skill of 12, but he is only getting 6 out of 12 out of it. That's because his statesmanship is working at an efficiency range of 57%. So I could either swap him out with somebody with a higher statesmanship, but maybe a lower skill, or I could keep him working, trying to get his statesmanship up, so one day in the future we can get the full potential out of him.
We now have a map mode manager allowing you to customize your map mode bar. So we have the map mode bar here, and we can now just click here and see all the possible options, and we can drag them down, replace them, move them around, put new ones out, and so on. This patch comes with a small change to subjects. Subjects can now be asked to abandon an ungrateful overlord, and themselves can seek out a new overlord if they are displeased with the current one. You may remember this line system, the arrows. These arrows or this line system actually was added with this patch that I'm currently showing, and not only can we see it for migration, you can also see it from trades. You can see where are you getting trade items from and where are you trading away your stuff to. Armies now consume and can carry food. When they are in situations that they would previously have taken attrition, they are now consuming food instead. If they consume all the food they are carrying, they will start taking attrition, and armies in friendly territories will start to stock up on food. Armies will now only reinforce if they are not currently taking any attrition. A supply train unit with great food carrying capacity have been added to the game. Great families. Each country will now have a limited set of major families that expect to hold a certain influence in the state. By ensuring their numbers have the amount of jobs they expect, the families will support your rule, but failing to do so will encourage them to rebel. A great family's prestige rating will now determine their share of the national pool of power base, meaning families that have held many important jobs will become more dangerous over time. Minor characters that are not part of great families, will appear during the campaign and will wield influence and power, but will not be able to call on their kin, get them jobs and positions. And now we have my personal favorite among the new features in this patch, the mission system. When you click the mission button, you can pick somewhere between 1 to 3 missions. And when you pick one of these, you're going to get a big mission tree. I'm going to show it really soon. But first, let's talk quickly about the mission tree. So there are generic types of missions or mission trees. I split them in 3 different categories. The first one usually called something like the matter of region, like the matter of Greece, for example, focusing on conquest, integration and assimilation of neighboring nations. And the second one is something usually called Pearl of Region, Growth of Region, or Stabilizing Growth of Region. These missions focus on building up, improving the infrastructure, the economy, the productivity. And then we have the third type, unique for tribal nations. Allowing tribal countries to reform from a tribal government to become either a monarch or a republic. How do a mission tree look then? Let's start this mission. First off, when I pick one of these missions, I won't be able to get back here until I actually completed the tree. So when I complete the trees, then I will come back here and be able to pick one of the other ones. And there can also be a new one showing up, because we are seeing 3 right now, but when I completed this one, it could unlock a new one. These tasks, these missions, they can be timed, they can be instant, it can be something you need to do, like conquer land or build buildings. And also some of these branches can be exclusive to another, so you have to pick, like, you can only do this one or only do that one. Finally, we have the DLC, the Punic Wars DLC. And as I said, it was free. It focused on the wars between Carthage and Rome, so it has a major focus on this area of the game. It comes with new events and new unit models, and also it comes with costume missions. There is a Roman mission pack with 9 unique mission trees for Rome, and there's also a Carthage mission tree with 10 unique missions. There were also some new music added to the game, 3 additional music tracks.
The fourth major patch 1.4 called Archimedes was released in late March 2020 alongside with the Magna Graecia content pack DLC. The patch comes with a lot of free features that you get if you own the game, while the content pack DLC costs money. Let's start with the free 1.4 features, and this patch is a big overhaul of religion. First off, we have state pantheons. Instead of a set of omens that are invoked periodically, each country now has a state pantheon of 4 primary deities that they can choose themselves from among all the deities worshipped by their population, even those not of the state religion. Each deity will provide plus 5% happiness for pops from its associated religion, as well as passive benefits specific to that deity. So looking at Carthage here, our Pantheon of Carthage, we have 4 different deities and we can change them by clicking this change deity button. The passive ability you get from each deity is the first one you can see here. So you may want to change to get a specific passive ability. As before this patch, each deity also has an omen that gives a larger temporary boost to its country. And that's the second option you can tell there, the active effect from each deity. And that one works more similar to the old one, where after a certain time your omen expires. You can tell the timing here from this bar. And when this is out, I can pick either the same one or a new one to get another active bonus. Holy sites exist in territories around the map, and apart from some local benefits, they also provide a boost to the effectiveness of their associated deity if a country owns their holy sites. And as Carthage, we actually own 2 holy sites, as you can tell. We have the Temple of Carthage and we have the Shrine of Tinustus, probably butchered that name. And if we go to a city that have the actual holy sites, you can see what the bonus it gives to the state. You can also see the bonuses the holy sites give to both the passive and the active effect. Holy treasures. Treasures are objects that can be placed on altars in holy sites and which will benefit the entire province to which the holy site belongs. How many altars a holy site has depends on the type of territory. A settlement has 1 altar, a city has 2, and a metropolis will have 3. There are around 100 treasures spread out around the holy sites of the world as part of the 1.4 update. In Temple of Carthage, we have the treasure, the lion-headed Tanit, and you can tell what bonus it gives. You can also say that we have room for another one that we could place if we wanted to. Desecration. Holy sites can be desecrated by their owner or a visiting army in control of their territory. Desecrating a holy site will transfer all of its treasures to the country performing the desecration. Desecration also causes other countries in the same religion group as the desecrated deity to lose opinion of the offender. And if I go to holy sites here and pick one of the ones I own myself, you can tell that there is a button to desecrate the holy site. To create new holy sites, you do that by going to a city and finding the dedicate holy site button. But of course, it's going to be different requirements for you to be able to do that. And each deity can only have 1 holy site. So you can't create one for a deity that already has one. But if one is missing, you could create one for that deity. Honored prophets. Since Judaism is monotheistic, it does not have a state pantheon. Instead, it will compose a group of 4 honored dead prophets of the faith. These work in similar ways to deities in some aspects, but they give more powerful benefits when activated, while also being possible to use more rarely. Monotheistic countries also cannot honor a deity from different religion. They are limited to only use their prophets. Other than the religious changes, this patch also comes with a few other updates. First off, trade. You can now specify trade goods for which you will automatically decline all requests in the trade view. As you can tell here from my nations, I have a bunch that are permitted. Right now we don't have any denied requests. If you like to play multiplayer, you can now configure AI settings that will dedicate what the AI can and cannot do if you leave the game. Continue button. When the game end date is reached, you can now choose to continue playing, but you won't be able to get any achievements off this point. Holdings no longer stop the promotion of slaves. Instead, there is now a button to halt slave promotion in a territory at the cost of slave happiness. Character loyalty. Character loyalty has been changed away from the system where it drifted over time to instead function as a sum of known modifiers. This means that at any given time, characters will occupy different parts of the loyal spectrum, instead of all character always drifting toward blind loyalty or complete defiance. To account for this, all sources of character loyalty in the game has been revisited and rebalanced. Traits now also play a much larger role in the base loyalty of a character. Now over to the Magna Graecia content pack. This DLC is the first DLC to Imperator Rome that costs money, but is much cheaper than normal Paradox DLCs. And it got released to very positive reviews on Steam compared to the base game's negative reviews. This DLC focused mainly on Greece and Circassius in Sicily. So the new features that this DLC brings: first we have apotheosis. Living and deceased rulers can now be deified and worshipped as gods. Deification requires selecting an existing deity that your character will assume the attributes and ceremonies of, as well as the passive and active bonuses. But invoking an omen of a deified character will result in a powerful effect that the base god did not provide, the strength of which will often be based on the skills and attributes of the deified character. And a little secret, this is also deceased rulers, and Alexander the Great is one of those deceased rulers that you could defy to become one of your gods. The DLC adds 4 new mission trees for Sparta, 4 new mission trees for Circassius, and 4 new mission trees for Athens. The DLC also features 30 Greek sacred treasures that have been placed in countries and holy sites around the Greek world. The DLC adds 12 new deities locals to Athens, Sparta, and Cyprus, and it also comes with special artworks for those deities. Australia, utilizing one of its old political traditions, Athens can now banish its citizens to unknown destinations without first imprisoning them by paying a hefty tyranny cost. Heroic Fries. This is a new Spartan province investment that increases the output of citizens in the entire province as well as the local supply limit. Free Helots. This new province investment lets Sparta increase the freeman output, primary culture happiness, and recruit speed in an entire province. Create mercenary state. Syracuse can release any city as a militaristic subject state under a puppet governor. A mercenary subject state gets a 50% increase to base manpower. The overlord will receive a reduction in mercenary cost for each subject of this kind they have, and can recruit new rulers from them. The DLC also adds 3 new Hellenistic themed music tracks. It adds new land and fleet unit models for Athens, Sparta, Cyprus, and Crete. It adds a new port model for Greek culture countries all around the world. It adds a new Acropolis-style fort model for all Greek countries around the world. The DLC also adds a number of historical flavored decisions to owners of specific significant provinces in the Greek world. And there you have it, all the major things that the patch 1.4 and the DLC added to the game. So, what are my thoughts on the current state of the game? They clearly come a long way, and it's worth mentioning that both DLCs, the Punic Wars and the Magna Graecia, have very positive reviews on Steam compared to the base game that got released to very negative reviews. And the base game now have climbed from those very negative reviews up to mostly positive if you check the recent reviews. And I agree, Paradox has listened to the fans and they worked hard on improving the game. The game still has some weaknesses and there is a lot of room for improvements, but considering what have happened during the first year, I am optimistic. I'm looking forward to see what Paradox can come up with for Imperator Rome during the next year with the regular updates that they have promised us. But if you really dislike the game at release and you couldn't get any fun out of it at all, I'm sorry to say that this game is still most likely not for you, even with all the improvements. But if you're more like me, I played the base game for a good amount of hours and I had fun while doing it before I reached a point where I felt like I was done with the game for now, then this could be the right time for you to dive into it again. I actually aimed to release this video about 2 months earlier than I did, but every time I was about to record some gameplay, I found myself getting caught in the game just playing for hours. If you had a decent amount of fun when you first played the game, you could probably get another 50 to 100 hours out of it right now. If you never played the game and are considering if you should buy it or not, it's definitely a better time to jump into it now than it was at release. If you have played other Paradox titles, you would probably compare it to EU4 and CK2. And comparing it to those games, I would say that Imperator Rome is by far the best looking one. But, and it's important to know, don't expect the character system to be as deep and impactful as in CK2, and don't expect running a nation, warfaring, painting the map to be at the same level as in EU4. The improvements are taking leaps in the right direction, but this game is still not at the same level when it comes to those things. But at the same time, it does both things pretty well. And if you want a mix of CK2 and EU4, Imperator gives you that to some degree. And if you're uncertain, I would recommend you picking up the game during a sale, where you usually can get it for half normal Steam price or less. But this has been a very long video, but don't hesitate to ask any Imperator Rome questions you may have in the comments below, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Now I would be very grateful if you could click the like button. It helps me out, and if you want more content in the future, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.